What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez. I'm joined by my friend Matt Llewellyn. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Zach. Let's jump right into it.
Yes, sir. And guys, today we're going to be talking about NFC West running back position groups, and we're going to be ranking them. Matt, who do you have at the top?
49ers. Very easy, especially with Todd Gurley leaving. You're looking at a guy, Raheem Mostert, who is on the come up. He's going to get a lot of carries. Tevin Coleman right behind him. Whether you think he was effective or not, he's a good 2. Depending on what Jet McKinnon can give you. I mean, again, these are all running backs that you've heard of, that you know of, that can potentially make an impact. And for me, that just makes the 49ers the best group. Number 2, I'd have to go with Seattle, although begrudgingly. I think Carson is a really good running back. They way overdrafted Rashawn Penny, who looks to be their number 2. Both those guys are coming off of injuries, so we're going to see how they're going to do. But they kind of take a little bit of the load off of Russell Wilson, and I think they're number 2. Number 3 for me is the Arizona Cardinals, and for me, Kenyon Drake came on and looked really impressive after the trade from Miami. He signs a deal there, so he stays. But beyond that, they don't really have a lot. And then last but certainly least is the Los Angeles Rams. Todd Gurley is out of town. They drafted a guy, Cam Akers. Maybe he'll be good. Maybe he won't be. I don't know enough about him to know. Everybody else are people that we've never heard of. So for me, it's 49ers 1, Seahawks 2, Cardinals 3, Rams 4. How about you?
I like that. To be honest with you, if it wasn't for Kenyon Drake, you could kind of interchange the Cardinals and Rams without much. I know the Rams, like you said, took a running back this year, Cam Akers, and he's an unknown. I know the running back position kind of translates well pretty early on in the NFL from college NFL, but still, bigger guys, tougher, faster, stronger. So that remains to be seen how he's going to play out. I think the 49ers do have the best position group out of the conference, and they've kind of just been hitting on most of I say a high percentage of their undrafted free agents stick on this roster. And it's kind of crazy because they brought back the majority of their roster from making the Super Bowl. And we got a guy like, Hasty. People are talking about him like he could really stick and do some damage on this roster. Now, my question for you, Matt, is if he somehow doesn't make this team, are the other 3 teams in this division going to be rushing to sign him?
I don't think that they'd be rushing to sign him per se. I think that he would probably make a roster. I mean, running backs are so interchangeable that if you get rid of one, you get rid of another. Hasty, to me, kind of embodies their love of undrafted free agents. You look back at Matt Breida, you look back at some other guys, and you just see that Kyle loves finding that diamond in the rough, and Breida was a really good find for them in their first season here, to be able to pull him off the pile and say, hey, look, this is a guy that we can get behind, is important. So to me, the signing of JaMycal Hasty, who may or may not turn into something, is just one of those things where it makes sense for the team to kind of like see what they can polish. He seems to be a player of a style that Kyle sort of likes, and so we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. He could land on this roster and stick. I know you said in a previous video you don't think Jeff Wilson makes this spot, the roster. Hasty could fill that void if they choose to roll with him. You touched on Kenyon Drake of the Arizona Cardinals and how he kind of hit the ground running on that Halloween game, first time with the game, with the team. Is he going to be the lead back for the Cardinals going into the season?
Yeah, I mean, de facto, he's going to be the lead back. It seems like everybody who leaves that black hole in Miami kind of becomes, it's like a breath of fresh air. And that's not really fair to Coach Flores and the rest of the team because they played really hard for him. I think that Drake had been there through the Adam Gase years and was just kind of like burnt on Miami. And I think the change of scenery really, really did him good. So, you give Kyler Murray somebody who can take the pressure off, somebody who can be reliable. Kenyon Drake is fast. I think he's going to be the lead back there this year for sure.
Okay. I could see that. And the 49ers definitely had trouble containing him. He's a fast guy. He was able to break through tackles. He played the 49ers really, really well. Now, when you're facing each NFC West opponent, which running back is the one running back that you are most worried about?
For some reason, it seems to be Chris Carson, who just shakes loose a little bit. And I think that's because the defense is so focused on stopping Russell Wilson, or at least slowing him down. You kind of forget, the Seahawks offensive line has been nothing to write home about. And it seems that in non-NFC West games, Chris Carson will disappear for stretches. He'll have a game where he has like 13 carries for 46 yards, right? As soon as he plays the 49ers, it's like 16 carries for 128 yards and a touchdown. Just something about the Seahawks playing the 49ers where the 49ers are so worried about Russell Wilson and what he can do, we forget about Carson. And before we know it, Carson has gashed us up and down the field and has made us mincemeat, and the defense is tired. And so they're not looking to hit anymore, whatever. And so for me, Carson is that one running back where you're just like, man, he came out of nowhere. He's not even having a great season, but for whatever reason, he always plays the 49ers tough.
Yeah, he played the 49ers really well last year when he was healthy and years prior. The thing that it's kind of a joking question, but it's serious. What are the Rams doing at this position?
No one knows. I think they're trying to replace Todd Gurley, but at the same time, it was just like, they gave Gurley this massive extension that everybody was like, look, his knee. I mean, even that time they signed it, everybody was like, hey man, there's something going on with his knee. And we don't know what it is, but there's something there. And, it was one of those things where they just did it anyway. And so for me, I think, I think general manager Les Snead, for whatever reason, values running backs, and he thinks they're really important, in spite of the fact that, it looks like McVay is not on the same page with Snead and they're having a little lover's quarrel. Snead seems to really like his running backs. So they definitely kind of stretched their arm out there and took Cam Akers, which I believe at the time, J.K. Dobbins was still on the board when they took Akers, which to me was just like it was a puzzling move, and it could turn out to bear fruit. Maybe it won't. They have a couple other guys on their roster that have played, but it's just another notch in the belt of ineptitude for the Los Angeles Rams, who seem to be on a steep decline.
What a great way to put it. We both agree on the rankings, 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals, and then Rams. How far ahead is the gap between the 49ers and then the rest of the division?
It's a large gap, and I'll tell you why in 2 words. Kyle Juszczyk. Right. People forget about Kyle Juszczyk. He is a all-pro, all-world fullback, and Kyle makes use of Kyle in ways that no other team can make use of their fullbacks. He is such an integral part, and you see it all the time, whether he's blocking Jimmy G's blindside or getting out there and dribbling Minkah Fitzpatrick like a basketball. He just makes plays. He's out there. He is the offensive weapon that the 49ers need. And you could see a little bit of the drop off in creative play calling when he got injured, and you just that alone, him alone, the 49ers without him are above everybody else. With him, it's icing on the cake, and they're just that much better.
That's a good point. Kyle Juszczyk, the offense was completely different with him on the field. Once he got injured, it kind of, like you said, slowed down a bit, took a step back, and then once he came back, they got going right back up to speed. Why do so few teams? I know this is specific to the NFC West, but I've always wondered, why is the fullback position just kind of fading into dust?
More teams are running the spread offenses, the RPO stuff, and the fullback is just kind of a relic of a bygone era for a lot of those teams in those positions. And I think that, for the most part, it makes sense. But for this team, Kyle seems to like his fullbacks. So, and it works, and they got the best one in the league in Kyle Juszczyk, and he makes the best use of him possible. I think for a lot of other teams, it's like, well, we can kind of use, if we want to motion a tight end into that fullback spot and use them there, we can kind of do that. But, for Kyle Juszczyk in this offense, Kyle uses him. Everywhere else, it's one of those, get everybody out on the perimeter, make as much space and mismatch as possible. Who cares about a blocking running back? But the 49ers are showing that the fullback position in particular is not dead yet.
Okay, that's a good explanation. The NFL seems to be getting faster, slower, stronger guys on offense. They're not really as needed. But in this offense specifically, I mean, you heard Kyle Shanahan when he signed Kyle Juszczyk, he handpicked him. I mean, it seemed like he was a guy he was watching for a while. He kind of had on his checklist of players that they needed specifically. And, I believe he went to Harvard, right? Very, very smart guy. So he's just perfect for this offense. Now, my last question for you, we're ranking NFC West running backs here. Where would you rank the running schemes?
Again, 49ers first. And that's because, I mean, the pedigree is there, and not just with Kyle, with his father. He comes from a long line of people who know how to get everything out of their running backs. You go back to Mike Shanahan in Denver, and he just had so many 1,000 yards backs, whether it was Terrell Davis, whether it was Clinton Portis, whether it was guys, who you don't even remember right now. There was a bunch of them though. And it's one of those things where Kyle has kind of picked that up from his dad. And so they're at the top. I think the second best running scheme for me, would actually be the Rams. I do like what Sean McVay does with the running backs. I do think that they run so much out of their 11 personnel that I think that if you have a good running back that can run in that scheme, it just helps everything. It helps sell play fakes. It helps sell Jared Goff's rollouts. And you could see that this year when Todd Gurley wasn't effective anymore, how much that affected Jared Goff. Whereas the year before, he was in conversations as a top 5 MVP guy. You're talking about him this year where everybody's like, oh, man, they made such mistakes giving Jared Goff that money, not realizing that he still threw for 4,600 yards, not realizing, I mean, he had a few more turnovers, but, he's still 65% completion guy, 4,600 yards. He's still making throws. You just see a little bit of the luster taken off when you don't have that running game. Third for me is going to be the Cardinals. And that is because I think that Kingsbury has a very interesting offensive system. And I think that when you pair that with Kyler Murray, that's going to make some, really dynamic holes for the running backs. And last for me is Seattle. Man, they just don't do a lot with their running backs. Pete Carroll has only had great running games when Marshawn Lynch was back there. And I think that just shows that it's a lot more Marshawn Lynch than it was Pete Carroll. So for me, to draft a guy like Rashawn Penny in the first round and have him be almost nothing. I mean, he hasn't really done anything. To have Chris Carson only show up in division games where it's super important, but really kind of disappear outside of that. I mean, it's just it's not, to me, it's not a good system for running backs. It's predicated on let's get Russell Wilson out in space and get him to pass the ball. But beyond that, they run the ball for a low percentage of yardage, and they just keep doing it. It's almost like Pete Carroll doesn't realize he has a Russell Wilson at times, and you should be kind of trying to open up the game for him. And they kind of try to do that without trying to do that, if that makes sense. So to me, the running backs in Seattle have a raw deal because that scheme is not good for them.
Yeah, and like you said, when Marshawn Lynch was there, their running game was top notch. They were always, one of the leading rushing teams, so they have definitely fallen far. I think you mentioned earlier, Seattle uses their running game kind of to complement Russell Wilson, and it's so effective because defenses are so afraid that Russell Wilson is going to keep it, he's going to take off, whatever it may be. I think we could see a little bit of that with Arizona this year. I think Kyler Murray is dangerous in space with the ball. He's shifty, little quick guy, man. He's hard to get down. I know he took a lot of sacks last year, but it takes a lot of effort for defenses to actually get him down. He looks like he's like slippery, like he's up there lathered in oil. Guys are just bouncing right off, slipping off of him. So I think we could definitely see that sort of style from the Cardinals this upcoming season. That's going to do it for us today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Niners News. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below. Also, comment your thoughts below. Do you think that how do the running backs rank the NFC West to you. Do you think the 49ers are clear and cut the best running back group in the division? Or who do you think is number one if not? And also make sure you guys subscribe, turn on all notifications. Once we reach 250 subscribers, we will be giving away a 49ers jersey. You do not want to miss out. And make sure you check out 49ershive.com. Hit the Shop 49ers Hive tab. And we do have our Come At Me Bro t-shirt right now. Use code JS74 for 15% off your purchase. All pre-orders get free shipping in the U.S. Thanks for tuning in, guys.